What's going on, guys? I'm Alex of Tech. How you doing? Today we are taking a look at the Sony Xperia XA2, a mid-range phone from Sony. We took a look at its previous generation phone a couple years ago. But whenever we do a Sony phone review, there's a huge cult following of Sony fans. And a lot of you guys hate it when I say certain things about Sony that are negative, or make an observation about something that the Xperias don't do well. You're in luck, and I'm in luck, because this particular phone I had a very good experience with. Not a lot of issues here, not a lot of negatives at all. This is actually a really good phone, and I'll tell you guys why in our full review of the Sony Xperia XA2. The first thing you'll notice about the XA2 is that this Xperia from 2018 retains that signature boxy feel that was somewhat rounded off in its flagship brothers, the XZ2s. This leads to one of those rare phenomenons where a phone can actually stand up by itself, something you rarely see anymore. Also, in a sea of premium chamfered phones, this XA has rather sharp corners. I mean, really sharp corners. It's accented when you touch it due to the fact that the frame of the phone is aluminium while the body itself is plastic. Regardless of that, the phone feels nice to hold in the hand. It's a bit hefty, but the fact that it houses a Snapdragon 630 processor, 3GB of RAM, and a 3300 mAh battery makes up for it. Unlike the previous two XAs, which ran MediaTek processors, the bump up to the Qualcomm mid-ranger is noticeable. Performance actually outdid what I expected it to. Apps flowed smoothly while transitioning from single to multitasking. There is a little bit of lag on occasion, but nothing I haven't seen from a Snapdragon 630 processor. As I said, I was actually surprised that the XA2 felt faster than some of the other Snapdragon 630 phones I've been testing recently. Speaking of which, here is the Nokia 6.1, which also sports that Snapdragon 630, and is also comparable to price with the XA2. I'm going to do a versus video later comparing these two, so don't miss that. But the reason I'm showing you the 6.1 is because I wanted to highlight how I like the size of the XA2. The body and the screen is not as small as a compact line, but this is a rather small phone by 2018 standards. The XA2 screen is only a 5.2-inch 1080p panel. It's an IPS one at that, and it uses a 16:9 aspect ratio. Yet, it doesn't feel too wide like some of the bigger 16:9 phones. I like the screen, especially after tinkering it to vivid colors. The blacks are really deep for an IPS display, and the reds really pop off here. The viewing angles are nice too. The colors hold over in a wide viewing spectrum. It can't compare to Quad HD or 4K offerings, some which come from Sony themselves, but this will be plenty for many. Thumbs up for me in the display department. And if you flip the phone around, there is a fingerprint scanner, which ironically is a little high, whereas its flagship counterpart, the XZ2, is a little low. It takes about 2 seconds to unlock on press, and accuracy depends on how dry your fingers are. For a mid-tier phone, this scanner fits the mold and is adequate. Alright, we're at the part of the video where a lot of you guys are going to dislike what I'm going to say, but I have to report it because it's an observation. It's an observation, something that happened. We recorded it for you guys to see, for everybody to know. It's not like I'm making this stuff up. I don't want it to happen. I want to have a good experience on a phone as well. It just so happens. And this is a problem we've seen on previous Sony phones. Last year on the XZ1, I pointed this out. A lot of you guys said it doesn't happen to you. I'm glad it doesn't happen to you, but for some reason it happens to all my Sony phones, previous generations of Sony phones as well. And we were talking about an app crash loop. App crashes, and they just loop. You can't touch anything else. You can't exit out of it. You click report, send in, or whatever, and it doesn't do anything. It just keeps popping up a menu like a spam menu like crazy. And we recorded on Twitter. You can check out our Twitter page for that video. And it's there. It happened again. It happened 3 times. Only way to get out of it is to soft reset your phone. And other than that, the XA2 has been a great experience. But the app crash loop, it's prevalent on Sony phones. I think it's a software thing. Sony and Oreo, I think it's Sony's adaptation of Oreo that's causing this. And it's happened on multiple devices
from Sony and not from anybody else. I haven't had this happen for any other brand in the past 2 years. So I don't know what to tell you guys. It's happened. I have proof of it. I'm using it exactly the same as I use other devices. I'm not making this up. I'm not trying to slander Sony like a lot of you guys said I am. I love Sony phones. This one was a great phone. Don't get me wrong. I love the XA2. But it happened, and I have to report it.
It still perplexes me because Sony's Android skin has always been super clean. This XA2 is almost up to date, running Android 8.0 Oreo. Sony's been a bit tardy with updates in the past, but they are in no way the worst offenders in the Android space. And finally, the camera performance on the XA2 is somewhat of a mixed bag. The shutter button works as a camera launcher for the 23 megapixel rear f2.0 single sensor. If you've used an Xperia in the past, the camera app is exactly the same. Superior Auto is reliable, and manual mode is solid for folks who want to take it a step further. These are Sony staples. A majority of the time, shots are crisp and colorful. Optimal lighting and surprisingly some low-light situations pose no issues for the XA2, and it oftentimes gives you a solid photo. The camera does fight to identify what to expose for, more often than I'd like to. A 4K video recording is of solid quality, and great that it actually has that, especially after recently reviewing a $400 plus Samsung phone that only shot in 1080p. The XA2 can hold up for you if you don't mind sacrificing some low-light performance and quicker shutter speeds of flagship cameras. And while on the subject of price point, for $300 this phone gives you a USB-C port, albeit a 2.0 one. That is still a tremendous win for equality in the budget space. This should not be a budget versus flagship debate. USB-C should be universal. And finally, for battery life, I got more than a day out of the XA2 with, I would say, an average of 4.5 hours of screen on time. Solid battery life for me.
All in all, I gotta say I'm pretty happy with the XA2. There were momentous jumps from previous generations to the XA, and in this particular product line, I do have to give it to Sony. I think they really stepped up their game this year in 2018 for this phone. And when you look at the Sony Xperia brand, most of their phones in general, even this particular XA in previous years, they're overpriced. They're overpriced for what they are in terms of competitors in the market space. You're paying more for that Xperia brand name. But the XA2, that's an exception to that, because the XA2, in my opinion, offers tremendous value. For that $300 price point, you're getting an actually really good phone. And we're going to take a look at a fellow competitor, the Nokia 6.1, in a comparison video with this particular phone. So I don't think you can go wrong with the XA2. I think it's a great phone, other than a few little hiccups here and there, which I've always had with Sony. I guess some of you guys say I just have really bad luck and I always get bad phones, but I don't think it's the case. I think Sony has some issues with their software that they just never really fix. But the XA2 I highly recommend. I do think if you're in that budget space, especially if you're looking for $200 to $300 phones, I would skip all the $200 phones, save up a little more and get this $300 one, because this one is a tremendous middle ground between a flagship and a budget phone. Once again, I'm Alex with Hypnotech. Let me know what you guys think of the Xperia XA2. Once again, come back because we got a lot of great stuff coming up, both with Xperias, Nokias, and a lot of other cool phones. And I'll see you guys in the next video.
If you like this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, hit the bell button below so that you don't miss a single video in the future. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!